OK, let's start with The Sun on Sunday, and they focus on an intriguing title race following Manchester City's 2-1 win over Newcastle United. 2-goal Nico gunning for him, and underneath that, the art of noise. Mikel Arteta calling on his players to embrace it or leave. Mark, let's start with this then. After City's victory and ahead of this North London derby, you get the impression they're smelling blood, aren't they? Is this starting to look a little bit ominous for the rest?
I think it's looked a bit ominous for about a month now. And I think that's been because Arsenal have slipped up a little bit, 2 wins in 7, and City have taken advantage. And I think the guys will probably agree this isn't a vintage City side at all, but they're getting the results, and that's almost more scary than the great City teams, because we just expected that of the team that won the treble or 4 straight titles. But this isn't a great Man City side. They've got weaknesses in certain areas, but they're still getting the results. They're still putting the pressure on. They're now 2 points behind. Now obviously Arsenal can go 5 points ahead today, but that 2-point gap is really turning the screw on Arsenal, and it's basically moved it on to Arsenal now, saying, right, if you want to be champions, today is the day you have to deliver. Anything but a win today suggests that Arsenal are, I think bottling it is too strong, but are really feeling the heat, and that's what City have done. They're smelling blood, but they're also putting on massive pressure on Arsenal to basically say, look, they obviously we know they want to win the title, but can they go and do it? And today's the day they have to turn up today.
John, it is 2 points, and that means that you could argue it's in both Arsenal and Manchester City's hands, because they've still got to meet at the Etihad. Whose position is the most favourable one at the moment, do you think?
Manchester City. I'll tell you for why. I just think that they have a momentum that is difficult to resist. I think that the turning point came at Anfield in this title race. I think absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, because at one point, with City losing in that game, the gap was going to be 9 points. And that to me felt as if, even Bernardo Silva acknowledged it immediately afterwards. He said, if we'd lost today, we would have effectively been out of it. The way that they came back, the manner of the fight back, and okay, you could argue fortunate, penalty, those sort of things, but that speaks to City's resilience. That speaks to their determination. It speaks to their experience, I think. And the way that they came back, I thought, was really quite exceptional. Let's get it right here. I do think that Arsenal, the biggest gap that they've had at the end of a match round where everyone's been equal, has only ever been 7 points. But Arsenal, having said that, have missed various points to build on that 7 points. And I think that's where City smell the blood. That's where City deliver. Year in, year out, they've had an exceptional January transfer window when their signings have been great, and Mark Gay, and then also Semenyo, brilliant signings, and that's turned up the heat on Arsenal. I think last night was a big pressure game, and I don't think many teams would have handled it as well as Man City did. I think to come away with that 2-1, to see the game out, to play so well in that first half, I think speaks to their exceptional prowess in title races. Listen, I've always felt that back me up on this one, Dan, but I've always said, haven't I, that I think City are going to win the title. I did think that my pre-season predictions were that Liverpool would, but I've quickly shifted that to Man City from a very early stage, just because I think they've got it within their locker. And Guardiola, if he is indeed coming to an end this summer, it would pain me to see that, because I think he's been brilliant for English football in the Premier League. What a way to go out, and I think they've clearly got it in their locker, and I think it will be City as champions.
These things come in threes. You said Liverpool, then City. Could change once again before the end of the season, so we might hold you to that. Jason, Mark mentioned it there about this not being a vintage Manchester City. With that in mind, are they totally convincing you that they can go ahead and take the title?
No, even if you look at the game last night, there's definitely been a trend in their recent fixtures, certainly, where the second half of games they've had a dip and they've been vulnerable. Newcastle could easily have drawn that game last night, and obviously they often come out of the blocks in the way they did last against Newcastle and go ahead, and sometimes they get sort of drawn back in. I think there's a little bit. What I find fascinating about this sort of dynamic between Manchester City and Arsenal is almost like Arsenal's existential sort of angst is the biggest problem for them. I think they think they're almost like
catastrophizing what's happening. There was almost become a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh, maybe we're not quite good enough, maybe we all get caught, maybe, oh, it's Manchester City. The thing I would say to them, and by the way, I'll caveat this by saying I think City will win the title, but what I'd say to them is that there's an awful long way to go. Manchester City have had to work incredibly hard to get close to them, and they're still not ahead of them. It's, as you said at the start of the show, it's in Manchester City's hands, but it's also in Arsenal's hands, and they've got to reset themselves. And I think today is a great chance for them to do that. Against Tottenham, I was at Wolverhampton on Wednesday. John was there as well. You come away from that game thinking there is no way this team will win the title. There's no way this team will win the title. So today gives them the chance to sort of show us why they can win the title. So it's a real opportunity for them against a weakened Tottenham, albeit with a new coach, to do that. If they don't win, I'm with Mark. If they don't win, it starts to look really quite terminal in that way that they're going to go in one direction. But I think their greatest hope is the fact they're still ahead. Plus, also, as we've already said, this is not a vintage Manchester City.
John, I was at Mikel Arteta's press conference on Friday ahead of this North London derby, and listen, this time 2 weeks ago, the Sunday Supplement panel were actually talking about that gap between Arsenal beating Sunderland and City about to play Liverpool, which you alluded to before. Yeah. They were 9 clear then. It's now a 2-point gap, clearly. In the back page of The Sun, Charlie White, who was at the press conference as well, focused on one of the issues that seems to be a recurring issue with regard to Arsenal, and the word noise, and the word noise around Arsenal with regard to this title race. And in fairness to Mikel Arteta, he keeps addressing the noise, and he says, look, let's embrace it. And if you can't handle the noise, maybe you shouldn't be at Arsenal, because that is what you're going to have if you're at this football club. But however much they publicly fight against that noise, is it almost natural to have that feeling, particularly with the fans, of impending doom about what could happen with this title race?
Well, I think it is, simply because of what's gone before. So I think a lot of people, I mean, even Jason references the fact we were both at Molineux together, and when Arsenal are kind of looking as if they're ready to implode, and indeed did, as indeed the Wigan fans sang the week, a few days before, second again, ole ole, and basically it's because Arsenal finished second in the last 3 seasons. But I do think it's unfair to paint it as this kind of bottling it again narrative, and I'll tell you for why. I think the first one, anyone would say that 22-23 was the most unexpected title challenge ever, and was a huge credit to Mikel Arteta, because they went on this crest of a wave. Then the following season, okay, you were expected to kind of push on and gain, and indeed they did that. Do you know what their run-in was like? They won 8 of their last 9 games, and the only slip was against Aston Villa at home. That's hardly bottling it. That's hardly bottling it. Last season, I would say, hang on a sec. Last season, I would say, steady. Last season, I would say that basically Arsenal were never realistic title challengers.
Oof.
I don't think so. They finished second. They should have been. But this season,
that's not an excuse, though.
But this season, they, I think, if they don't do it this season, then absolutely they will have bottled it. And I think people go on and on about Arsenal having the best squad. The best squad is defined by winning the champions, by winning the championship and being champions. That's when you decide who has got the best squad. Arsenal got the biggest squad. I think they made shocking decisions in the summer, really bad decisions, and I think that's on the sporting director and Andrea Berta, not Mikel Arteta. I think, look, it was so obvious last season that Arsenal needed to strengthen up front, so they've signed Victor Gyökeres, who is nowhere near of the level of Arsenal.
But the other option was Sesko. It wasn't like they had anyone else.
Well, I think Sesko would have been miles better, and then basically also the left-hand side. So what do? They sign a right winger. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous.
Well, and you think that was Berta rather than Arteta?
Well, I think Arteta's always going to be on board with signings.
I can't see Arteta having him signing imposed upon him.
£180 million odd, on what was it, Gyökeres, Eze, and Madueke. Well, I think Madueke's a good addition to the squad. But was he what they needed?
And the 2 points clear with the game in hand.
And Eze, basically, I just. Honestly, it's bonkers. No, they haven't got a game in hand.
Oh, the 2 points.
Basically, come on, pal. Come on here and get your facts right. If Arsenal had got their business right in the summer, they would have been 10 points clear now and beyond for the title.
I can't believe that any of those signings weren't authorised by Arteta. I don't believe that at all. I mean, Berta's gone in there as a fairly new sporting director. I think the Gyökeres one, you're absolutely right. He wanted Gyökeres more than Sesko, but I think Arteta was happy with Gyökeres as well. Personally, I don't. He can't absolve the manager of the signing.
I don't think they would have clashed over it. I don't think they would have clashed over it. But I think Berta has to come up to say why this player is better than that player. And my word, if he's genuinely said that Gyökeres is a better option than such and such.
Sesko was the other one, wasn't it?
They didn't need Eze. I feel sorry for Eze. He's a lovely kid.
That was on Arteta. Arteta did want Eze.
Absolutely bonkers.
You know, Jason was talking about catastrophising before and all the noise. I think, to be fair, it's not Arteta and the players that are catastrophising. It's the fans. It's the fans that's creating all the noise.
They've got to manage that better, then, haven't they?
No, but see, we're in an era now of social media where all these fan accounts make a lot of noise, and the Arsenal fans are not handling it well, are they? Let's be honest. After the game at Wolves, it was horrendous, some of the stuff that was coming out. And obviously they care, and fans are all the same. It's not just the Arsenal fans, it's Man United fans, Liverpool fans, City fans. They do go to the extremes, but I think that is creating a lot of noise around Arsenal, whereby we're latching onto it because we see that the noise around the club, but it's been created by this desperation to win something. I mean, there's one video where one fan was giving 9 out of 10 for certain performances and just absolutely raging against it. And the players will see that, because we're all told that players don't read the papers, don't look at TV. You know, we've all been in training grounds where they've got huge TVs up with Sky Sports News and all day. They see all of it and it gets into their heads. So the players are being affected by the noise off the pitch. So it's hard for fans.
So with that in mind, how do you think Mikel Arteta has handled it? Because you're pointing the finger at the fans and maybe they're feeling the nervousness.
I'm not blaming the fans. The players on the pitch are playing, but the noise that's around the club is created by the fans and all the fan media channels. Arteta, I think in his press conferences, is handling it quite well. But it seeps out on the touchline, doesn't it? You see his frustrations during the game. And I don't think that's helping the players or the fans in many ways, because they see him really tensed up. But I mean, certainly in the press conference, I think he handles it quite well. But that's pre-match. Post-match is slightly different. But I just think there's just so much noise around Arsenal because the desperation, the panic, and the Man City thing. Because obviously City have got into the head because twice City have overhauled them in with the lead for the title. So it's all coming together. But get back to the point: if they win today, they've got a healthy lead.
Is it the perfect game, maybe, for them?
Yeah.
Beyond the fact
it's the worst game to lose. It's the perfect game. No, actually, no. To be fair, any game's a perfect game. You just got to win it. But obviously, Spurs away. Arsenal haven't had a signature game this season where they've come back with a win. You talked about the Liverpool game being the defining moment of the season, or the turning point of the season. City-Liverpool. Well, today could be the defining moment of the season. If Arsenal win today, that's them saying to Man City, we can handle this, we can do it. And so, you know, it all depends on it doesn't all depend on what happens today, but today's a big moment, and Arsenal can silence a lot of the noise by winning at Tottenham. I'm not so convinced Arteta's handled it very well. I'm not. I think he said the right things in press conferences, but I think if you look at him, his demeanour on the touchline is an issue. It has been, I've said this for years, it is an issue. You can see some of the players looking at it and thinking, just calm down, just calm down. Even against Wolverhampton on Wednesday, they were winning, and he was going crazy the whole time. Now, obviously, there wasn't the intensity and there wasn't the tempo they needed to have, but I think sometimes that transmits itself a little bit too much from the pitch. And the other thing I would say is tactically, they're incredibly well coached, brilliantly well coached team, defensively fantastic, but they can be quite rigid in what they do. And I think the over-reliance on the set pieces has come back to haunt them a bit. I think it's become a thing. And that sometimes their open play, there just isn't enough creativity in there. And we talk a bit about the squad balance, and I agree with John that they've got a deep squad, but there's certain areas of that team, especially up front, where you think they're just not quite strong enough. They haven't quite got the right players. Gabriel Jesus has come back into the team, Gabriel Martinelli. Bukayo Saka's obviously had the injury. You look at it sometimes, I mean, Trossard, you know, they're all not quite there. You know, isn't that Haaland, Semenyo type player at the moment who you think, right, I'll rely on him to score a goal now. There isn't somebody there I see that, because obviously the dominance isn't translated into that enough for me. And I think the forward area is an issue, but I think he almost has to let the handbrake off a little bit more with them. You know, he let them play a bit more. And I think sometimes, you know, there's that kind of over-reliance in the way they play. So that point,
and I think he's overplayed a couple of players. Sorry, Zubamendi's played far too much. Far too much. What is Norgard doing there? And Timber has played far too much. I think he needs to rest some of those players as well.
To your point there, though, about they haven't got a player that rises to the big occasion and delivers when they have to. When we're talking about teams that won the title in the past, they've had a Mo Salah, an Eden Hazard, a Cristiano Ronaldo, you know, an Erling Haaland. Arsenal haven't got that, but do you think Arteta doesn't want that? They haven't got a Thierry Henry.
Yeah.
Does the way Arteta play enable the player to be a free spirit like that, to be somebody who plays off the cuff, or is it all too structured whereby they can't have an individual like
You've got that whole argument with Eze, haven't you?
Well, yeah.
People whether or not he's been allowed
He's
to be
stifling
the
his
player
best
he can
players.
be, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people within the game, don't they, talk about, I think, Arteta being a brilliant coach and Arsenal being the best coached team around. You were making that point, Jason. I think
everyone tells me they're fantastically
great.
well coached, yeah.
But I think there's an element where there's a line. Yeah. Where I think, Jason, you're hinting at it, and I think it's true in that basically there's a line where you can be almost overcoached, and then basically it becomes rigid, it becomes turgid. This season sometimes it's been painful watch. I do think Arsenal, I think that's a bit unfair on Arsenal, because I think on you saying they needed a response, they haven't had a signature one. I think they were under massive pressure before Leeds away. And they went and smashed Leeds. Absolutely brilliant performance, and that was great. And
Everton away as well was a game like that.
They played with a bit of freedom at Leeds. But I think on Wednesday night at Wolves, it was shocking to see how poor Arsenal were in the front three. So basically you had Madueke on the right, Martinelli on the left, and Martinelli is I love his spirit and his determination. But I think it was clear last season that maybe Arsenal needed an upgrade. And they're starting a key must-win game with Martinelli still, and Martinelli had a really poor, disappointing game, and it's up to him to step up. And Gorkrez barely touched the ball. I mean, it was ridiculous. Saka then is in the number 10. I mean, Saka is a wonderful, beautiful player, and then Arsenal just have this thing where, the City of basic is, serving their sort of backsides on a plate with their transfer business, Semenyo and Gay. Because you look at that, Arsenal could have done with Semenyo on the left, and yet that, I think, is why City will win the league, is because their transfer business, their recruitment has been totally different level, and it spooked Arsenal, and Arsenal haven't got enough quality up front. Saka played in the 10 the other night. Saka's a beautiful player. When Arsenal have Saka, Havertz and Odegaard's such a big player for Arsenal when he's at his best and when he's in form and when he's the captain leading by example. They're a different kettle of fish because it's quality. You're talking about quality players. They don't have enough quality, in my view, up front at the moment.
Jason, just let me direct you to a piece in the Sunday Telegraph by Sam Wallace. The headline is "Title or Bust" at key moment for Arsenal. He says Arsenal need to win that title, and to do so with Guardiola still at City would make the point. There is always next year, of course, he says, but these kinds of moments do change the lives of clubs. He says there's always next year. Is there for Arsenal?
For Arteta or for Arsenal?
For Arteta.
Well, for Arsenal, certainly. Obviously, they're in a stronger position than when Arteta took over, for sure. They're in a better position. I think with Arteta, that's a really good question. And I wrote at the start of the season saying he's got to win. He's got to win the Premier League or the Champions League this year. We're not talking about Carabao Cup or FA Cup. He's got to win one of the big two prizes. And actually, the way things are shaking out at the moment, you might look at the Champions League as a better option than the Premier League, the way things are going. But I think they're still in it and they can still win something. I think if he falls short, if he finishes second and, say, goes to the Champions League semi-final, it's a hard question, isn't it? It's a really, really hard question, because if you say, right, you've taken us so far, we move you on, that feels brutal. But at the same time, when do you win it? When do you get over that line? And that's the question that he's probably asking himself as well. I mean, he's done this great body of work. We like it, lots of what he's done, but there's just something the thing is, I think if Arsenal get over the line, by the way, I think we could be looking at 2 or 3 years of dominance. I really do, because I do think that final step is almost mental, as much with the manager as the club, as the players, as the fans. Everyone get over that line, it could change things. I think it's that finely balanced at the moment, isn't it? This could be, they're going for 4 trophies. This could be amazing, or it could be too short. And I think there will be a hard question to ask at the end of the season as to whether he carries on if he doesn't win one of those major titles this year.
Just very quickly, Mark, before we take a break, the first of those trophies, how pivotal could that be? Because it is Arsenal against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup final.
It means everything because of the proximity of the league game afterwards. I think it's about 10 days, 2 weeks afterwards. So if Arsenal win that game, then talk about psychological boost and confidence boost, beating City for a major trophy, that could help them get over the line. If they lose, the questions will be asked again. It's a trophy they haven't won. So I think it's got more to it than just winning.
Arsenal's internal shakeup continues, and the latest departure signals that the restructuring behind the scenes is far from over. James Ellis has stepped down from his role as technical director just 7 months after being promoted. According to BBC Sport, Ellis, who only took on the position last August after serving as head of recruitment, has now left the club amid what appears to be a wider internal overhaul. His exit doesn't come in isolation. In December, Arsenal appointed former Napoli executive Maurizio Micheli to a senior recruitment role, a move widely seen as part of the club's long-term structural reset. Just months earlier, Andrea Berta had been confirmed as sporting director, effectively replacing Edu Gaspar. That appointment alone signaled a new era. Now, with Ellis gone, the transformation feels even more deliberate. Ellis joins Edu and former CEO Vini Venkatesham among high-profile departures from the Emirates hierarchy. Both Edu and Venkatesham moved on to new roles, Edu taking on a global director of football position at Nottingham Forest, and Venkatesham joining Tottenham. However, neither situation appears entirely stable. Edu's time at the City Ground has reportedly been turbulent. Nottingham Forest's dramatic drop in form since his arrival has raised serious questions about the project's direction, and indications suggest his tenure there may not last much longer. Meanwhile, at Tottenham, Venkatesham has come under intense scrutiny from Spurs supporters, particularly for his initial backing and continued support of Thomas Frank, even as results and performances deteriorated from December onward. Eventually, Igor Tudor was appointed interim manager, and his first match in charge came in the most demanding fixture possible, the North London derby against Arsenal. Despite having just 7 days in the job, the 47-year-old Tudor understands the magnitude of the occasion and the adversity he's facing. "We trained with 13 players," Tudor admitted. "That's the reality. It's not ideal, but in moments like this, the challenge becomes even greater. And so does the opportunity to succeed." He added confidently, "We will have 13 players ready, and that's more than enough to achieve what we want on Sunday. I understand the importance of this match. It's a North London derby. Everyone expects 3 points from us. We are aware of that." Arsenal, however, arrive at the derby carrying frustration of their own. Consecutive draws against Wolves and Brentford have slowed their momentum, and Mikel Arteta made it clear there could not be a better fixture to respond. "It's the next game, and it's the one we're most excited to play," Arteta said. "If we could play today, we would. We have to use that feeling in our stomach the right way, and show it on Sunday." There are also selection decisions looming. Despite Eberechi Eze scoring 3 times in the reverse fixture, his place in midfield is no longer guaranteed. Competition has intensified, particularly after positive fitness updates on Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard, both capable of operating in similar roles. "We'll have to wait until tomorrow," Arteta said cautiously. "But there's a strong possibility that both of them will be available." With tension rising both on and off the pitch, this derby feels bigger than usual. Arsenal are reshaping their leadership structure. Tottenham are battling instability, and both clubs are searching for momentum at a crucial stage of the season. Sunday won't just be about 3 points. It's about direction, identity, and control in North London. The broader picture, however, stretches beyond one derby or one boardroom exit. What is unfolding at Arsenal is a defining phase, a moment where structural decisions off the pitch could shape the club's competitiveness for years to come. The departure of James Ellis raises natural questions about continuity and recruitment strategy. Arsenal have invested heavily in building a data-driven, modern scouting network over the past few seasons. Under Mikel Arteta's leadership, recruitment has largely aligned with a clear footballing identity: younger profiles, tactical intelligence, technical security, and long-term resale value. Now, with Maurizio Micheli and Andrea Berta positioned as key figures, the club appears to be centralizing authority even further. For supporters, the concern isn't necessarily change, it's instability. Frequent turnover at executive level can create uncertainty during crucial transfer windows. With the summer approaching and expectations growing after consecutive near-title pushes, Arsenal cannot afford missteps in squad planning. Rivals are strengthening. Margins are thin. Every decision matters. On the pitch, the North London derby carries added psychological weight. Arsenal's recent draws against Wolves and Brentford weren't just dropped points. They dented momentum at a critical juncture of the season. Title races are often defined by response, how quickly a team reacts after disappointment. Arteta understands that narrative. Privately, there is belief within the squad that performances have not dipped as sharply as results suggest. Arsenal have maintained strong possession metrics, defensive structure, and chance creation numbers in recent matches. The issue has been efficiency, converting control into decisive moments. Against Tottenham, that margin for waste disappears. For Spurs, the situation feels even more volatile. Igor Tudor's interim appointment reflects urgency rather than long-term planning. Training sessions with limited numbers underline the squad's injury struggles, and depth will be tested against one of the league's most organized sides. Yet derby matches rarely follow logic. Emotional intensity often overrides tactical predictability. Another layer to the story is the competitive landscape at the top of the table. With Manchester City and Liverpool maintaining relentless standards, any slip can reshape the standings instantly. Arsenal know that draws at this stage can feel as damaging as defeats. The pressure is no longer about proving progress. It's about delivering silverware. Internally, Arteta's message has reportedly been direct. Block out external noise. The boardroom reshuffle, media speculation, and scrutiny around player selection cannot bleed into matchday focus. Leadership inside the dressing room, particularly from senior figures, becomes crucial in moments like this. There is also anticipation around the possible return of Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard. Their availability would not only boost tactical flexibility, but also restore leadership and composure in key phases of play. If both are fit, Arteta faces a selection dilemma, but one he would welcome. In North London, perception shifts quickly. One result can calm doubts or intensify them. A victory would reassert Arsenal's authority, silence questions about momentum, and reinforce belief in the current project despite executive turnover. A setback, however, would amplify concerns about consistency at the worst possible time. Ultimately, this is a convergence of narratives, structural change, title ambition, squad depth challenges, and historic rivalry. The derby will not define the entire season, but it will send a message. And right now, both clubs are desperate to control that message.